Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Let's see. Friends, I didn't know how to start a talk like this, so I pulled out the cliche most slide I could figure out, and it's like this. Two types of speakers, those that are nervous and liars. This is no BS conference, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm massively nervous for multiple reasons, but the most, perhaps the most realistic one is that up until like Sunday, this is what it looked like. My talk was TBD, and so what you came for in here kind of might reflect that as well. This is the place where we would go and do things like, okay, show of hands, how many of you have your Slido? All right, fairly okay. How many of you are in management? Very cool. How many of you would be, on the IC path? So engineers, product engineers, and things like that. Interesting. So I guess I can talk about that as well. So what Slido about is running these sorts of nice Q&A sessions after talks like this, but also about you not having to do this, show of hands and stuff like that. It can do a lot of polling and a lot of nice audience interaction and things like that. So that's what Slido used to be up until one day when this other company came and kind of acquired us out of nowhere, at least to me. No one told me. But what we kind of did in response, you can notice that Cisco has this nice kind of a bridge in his logo, and it turns out that the logo is inspired by the bridge over there, I believe, not too far off. But it turns out this place where Slido comes from, Bratislava, also has its own bridge. So for the purposes of us kind of surviving through, we updated the logo as well. And that's what I'm whole kind of wearing in here. Here's why that's important. It kind of felt that the mission that Slido had once we got acquired might be sort of over. Slido was an attempt to improve the kind of the quality that you get out of joining a meeting, either physically or virtually. And with something like this, it looked like it might be over. It turned out that's not the case, and I'll show you at least in the three small pieces how we went about doing that. The very first question that we kind of did for. We kind of try to ask ourselves as we went through this, and this was kind of also part of the standard ways of Slido thinking, if you want, was how can we find time for impactful known priorities? When you are running a startup, when you're finding your product market fit, you're almost always, the standard advice you get is be laser focused on your priorities, nothing else. Like you have to execute on your mission. But there are many things that might be impactful on their own, yet you'll never find time for them. And it's kind of daunting to even think that you'll never get to that. And so here's what we did. This is a regular month that we would look at. Here is what our month would look like. We would take 3 days of that month and do 3 specific type of activities through them. One would be organization days, then low-hanging fruit days, and then hackathons. And I'll quickly run through each of these. Organization days would be kind of a specific time where the priority of the team, the whole team, would be nothing else but to get organized, both on team and personal level. And this would be all sorts of cleanup that doesn't normally get done, from your email inboxes all the way to outdated docs with like Slack channels in between and stuff like that. And the reason why you do this, at least why we did this, was things like this. It's only entropy that comes easy. Everything else you have to fight for. And so to keep things clean, org days were a nice answer. The other thing were low-hanging fruit days. And the idea there is that when you are laser focused on your mission, there are many small things you could do. You are definitely sure that you can nail them, but you won't. Mostly because the big priorities are big priorities, and that's where most of your energy needs to be focused on. Low-hanging fruit days are then the kind of the answer to, okay, when do we do this? And that can be this that we do can be anything from improving internal tooling all the way to automating dependency updates where that's in any ways possible. The idea is to bring quality of life improvements throughout something like this. And then obviously hackathons, you heard many things about them today, so I won't bore you with that. We do them, or the way we did them was not only to bring new ideas to the product or to things that we worked on, but also to kind of explore what the kind of basically where nobody else went before. Normally, the way hackathons work is that we'll try to have at least some sort of a team, but apart from there, you are free to basically spend your time creatively in any way you want. We have people who did I'll do a skateboard trick, and that's how I will send a vote to Slido and things like that. So our own, like the overarching theme is to have fun. And the big thing that was possible to happen in here was that the expectation from the management is nothing gets done throughout these sorts of 3 days. But most importantly, don't expect that some sort of a feature you thought up when you went for your morning run will be implemented there. That's not what this is for. And so I'll give you a couple of examples of things that actually did come out of something that has no expectation. This is DBT coverage. It's sort of our answer to how do we do like test and docs coverage for DBT projects. And it turns out that something like this didn't really exist, and building it ended up being a pretty popular part and our kind of contribution to the open source community. Another example, and this is where the fun part kind of came from, was that we put together this thing that's called Slido the Tiger, or in short, Sliger. And ladies and gentlemen, what this does is that it lets you do sort of Jinja templating directly in your Google Slides. So when you have a lot of reporting that you end up doing via slides, this is what you install, run a single command, and save a massive amount of time. Again, the important part was the logo, not the functionality at the end of the day. And now, for something that I am kind of doing on a daily basis now, or something I'm close to, as basically anyone who has a platform through which a lot of text goes, such as Slido, we are working with generative AI quite a bit. And so the thing that we were missing was, how do you keep track of the prompts that they're using? How do you know that your specific prompt is okay enough? And how do you kind of keep track of how your prompts evolve over time? So we put together something called Prompterator. To the best of our knowledge, is the first sort of like open source and very easy IDE you can use to iterate towards better prompts. So things like that. And if you kind of sum this up, these first 3 days, we would always do organization days organization days in 1 month, low-hanging fruit days in another month, hackathon again in the next month, and rotate this throughout the whole year. The reason why we do this is that it turned out for us that doing something for 3 days in a row way better than doing something each Friday, for instance. The scope can be bigger, and you can sort of try to take way bigger risks. And what also worked for us very well was that rallying a theme, having a rallying theme, kind of helped us make it so that, for instance, in one of these, we would focus only on documentation. And in the span of 3 days, where no one expected much would happen, a lot of things actually did. And the last thing which I want to sort of close this with is that it has massively unforeseen but positive behavioral implications. Whereas previously you would say, I'm not going to finish something like this. I'm not going to do these small things that would be nice. And like that's life, unfortunately. With these first 3 days, the way we would go about it mentally would be, all right, back to the backlog, label it as say low-hanging fruit. I know we'll get to it. Worst case scenario in about 3 months. So that will be the first 3 days. The next thing that we were struggling with, and that we kind of found an answer for relatively late, was something like this: how do we do learning and development in a fun or possibly engaging way? In other words, how do we make it so that it's something people actually want and get something out of? And being at the No BS conference, let's start with the No BS statement. Outsourced training doesn't work, and that's a hill I'll happily die on. And the thing that I'll quote to kind of make that case would be this awesome book by Henry Grove, in which he dedicated the final 15th chapter, I believe, to whose title is basically "Training is the boss's job." And I believe that really is the case, that it has to be the leadership's kind of imperative and task to deliver that. And so the way we went about this was as follows. This is that calendar of ours. The way we changed it a little bit was that we introduced this thing called Learning Thursdays. And what that is a very kind of focused but relatively short 1 hour a week, reserved for learning, prepared by kind of the leadership team of the tech team. And the interesting part there is that the normal problem of these sorts of these sorts of activities is like, where do you get interesting content? Our approach at doing this is that anything you do that's technically interesting, any technical problem that you faced, and you can talk about it for at least 7 minutes, is something we are definitely interested in. It's also the best SEO hack for starting your blog. If you fight with something that's technically interesting and other people might fight with it too, it's very possible that whatever you write about it will be read later on. And so you have a select list of topics in here. Not many of them would probably make it to kind of, to the top of the priority list for someone, but it's something that you can certainly do in your own team as well. It turned out that for us, having a standard weekly cadence was the primary reason why this worked at all. Whenever we tried anything else, it didn't really stick. And perhaps the biggest kind of advantage this gives us is that it's a safe environment for people to try public speaking. Whether you end up going the managerial way or being a individual contributor, at some point you will have to deliver a presentation to someone and somewhere, and this is a nice way to try it out. The presentation I'm delivering in here would be one of those examples. It would be tested at learning curves as well. And it also gives us a backlog of content. Content is the king these days, and I mean it always was, but it's more visible than ever. So many of the kind of presentations that happened on the whim for Learning Thursdays would end up being blogs or being sent to kind of other places, other conferences, both internal and external. And one bonus thing that we kind of introduced to effectively post-acquisition was this, which is called Capture the Flag. This is an old hacker game, old in the sense that it's been around. The way we play it is we kind of group people into teams in which they don't normally work together, and we kind of have them play against organizers, which is basically me. And in this sort of a game, the task is always the same: find the flag. And the way you would get these tasks would be something like this. Okay, here's a bunch of numbers. Figure out what do I mean. The kind of spoiler alert here. This is how you would say Mockingbird if you had a T9 kind of a keyboard. You can make it way more geeky than at the end of the day. There are DevOps people at Slido who can do this without looking up the respective ports. This they could not figure out because they don't really know what's the HTTP code for I'm a teapot. And things like this, where you get a single noodle and now you don't really know. That's where it gets interesting. So what's something like this? Anyone ventures a guess? Yeah, I thought so. All right. It's a massively esoteric programming language in which the actual programs look like abstract paintings. It's called Piet, and it has a kind of online compiler. So you just upload this, and you got the flag in there. As you could see, figuring out something like this, that's what brings the internal geeks in people. And it turns out that's something that was surprisingly appreciated for us. So talking about unorthodoxy, you'll take at least Piet from this presentation. Okay, so many of these examples, would kind of have similar stories behind them. We also made it partially physical, in the sense that people had to go out and deal with these tasks by kind of physically checking the number of windows on a building, or number of stairs, or, as you can see in the second image from the left, compute the determinant of a matrix that they found hidden somewhere. That's not what I wanted to kind of finish this with. What I wanted to finish it is this. Although the whole thing was kind of time boxed into 2-3 hours, and the idea was to go for a beer later on, people were so excited about kind of doing things that don't normally do, still about technology, that instead of enjoying beer, they ended up cracking my attempt at the XOR, or whatever the toughest thing there was. So I guess that if you are looking for something where you can kind of channel the inner geeks of people out, not a bad choice. And my final kind of my final big question that kind of wanted to explore with you in here was this, which is very difficult. How do you hold something like a team together? I was kind of reflecting on this. Remember this tweet by Chris Albon, which basically refers to this thing that no one really talks about with engineering management, which is that it's fairly normal, but it happens where every person will have sort of downtimes, times where they fight with something that might be even a personal crisis. Something happened at home, or something like that. Now the problem is that if you're a single person, you go through ups and downs. If you manage 6 to 7, 8, 12 people, you can rest assured that basically every single day there will be some sort of emotional crisis you're fighting with. So I mean, how do you hold people together in an environment like this? Or better yet, where do you find a release from something like this? I have a crazy story to tell with regards to this, which goes like this. I had this colleague, and he was at the time he was reporting to me, who came one day with this sort of a thing from his past, which was that when he was at school, he had this very nice music teacher. And she basically said, when they went, and went to play on some instruments, some small drums or something like that. Normally when they would go and play, she would tell me, you know what, Andre, you can draw instead. And that kind of filled me with I guess massive amount of rage. That was a massive pedagogical injustice, because that's what that created in him was a kind of an aversion to creating any sort of music. Whenever we do music, I go and draw, and that I didn't think was right. And I was thinking like, what can we do about something like this? So I'm not gonna teach a person to sing, not that I know how to do that. But then I remembered this sort of a quote, which is pretty awesome. George Hinchcliffe is the co-founder of Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain. If you want to have a nice evening, go check them out. It's an awesome ensemble. He basically said the following thing: whether you go for a dinner or go buy ukulele, same money. Like it's basically a no-brainer to get something like that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, fairly and like a little of an asterisk, depending on where you live, there's a good chance that the ukulele will be cheaper than the dinner. So that really makes it a no-brainer. And like, long story short, we started to play. The way we went about playing was this: like half circle, quantity, not quality, not in any chance. A big projector behind us. Notice the title. It's called "Don't Query, Be Happy." That kind of channels the what you are fighting with on daily basis. Notice also if you play on some instrument, don't worry, be happy. That's 3 chords. That's exactly what we knew in this sort of a group. Here's a different picture of the same thing. It turned out that the sing-along behind us, big thing, and very helpful. And then what happened? Very randomly, people started to get married. I guess that happens to people. But when you kind of play in something like this and you get married, it turns out that by far the best wedding joke is a song for you. So what we would basically do would be like a cover version of a very simple song, again, 3-4 chord max, where we would have a very specific kind of lyrics just for the person that would get married. And I can show you a couple of the examples of this. It's ended up being a normal thing, a thing that we normally do at this point. And the reason why I'm showing you this is that we can take a look at that Andre now. This is my personal wedding. This is Andre. And this is our CEO, who is holding the lyrics for him. So in about 3 years, he got from, in a very mechanistic style, he got from I will never do any music down to his our CEO, giving him kind of a proud look of how great of a job he's doing. The reason why the CEO is in there, I didn't really invite him, but what this shows sort of is that a crazy kind of initiative ended up being kind of even appreciated on the larger levels. Final story. Everyone knows YMCA, right? When you get to a company like Cisco, you get a massive amount of kind of creative material to work with. So I'm not sure if anyone heard of COBC. That's the Code of Business Conduct. And if you ever sort of come to Slido, we can show you how we do COB. I'm not sure how it's B and that's C. That's the sort of a production that we would normally do with something like this. And now, like, I get what you might be thinking, like, cool story, bro. So you have nice culture in Slido. So, like, what do I care, like, right? Like, what's that gonna help me? And I get it. Like, if I were sitting in your place, this is what I would be thinking. I mean, I hear culture, I think yogurt. I mean, like, it's very difficult to define. And I agree. And if it's difficult to define, it's even more difficult. It's even more difficult to preserve. But what helped us, and in an n equals 1 sort of an experimental way, was something that we were fond of doing. Were these 3 things that I want you to live with, which is 3 days a month. As crazy as it sounds, it's not that difficult to rally a team around. 3 days we can afford to get rid of. Learning as a team. It turns out it has much broader implications than allowing people to learn on their own, and then creativity as a glue. I'm not sure if there is research around this, but I'm pretty sure if you are creative in one facet of your life, and if you are kind of in tag management, or if you are doing some programming yourself, I guarantee you there are other facets where you will be creative too. It might be improv for you, for your team. This might mean going to dance classes or something like that. But if all fails, I guarantee you can try ukuleles cheaper than a dinner, at least where we live. And with that, friends, I would be remiss if I didn't do this in this particular city. So when we got acquired, this is how Slido got famous in Cisco. If you're going to Slido, Cisco, be sure to have a business picture of your head. If you're going to Slido, Cisco. All right, that's enough.
Oh my gosh, Marek. First of all, can I give you a hug?
Oh yeah.
That was awesome.
I mean.
Secondly, can you be my boss?
Not anymore. I'm a principal in whatever data scientist now. So I guess that's also something I learned at Cisco. I no longer can manage people. Oh, who knows?
That was a fun one, but thank you. It was wonderful. First of all, I picked up ukulele for exactly the same reasons as Andrej. Essentially, people said I cannot play anything, and I picked it up at work, and it was so much fun. So ukulele saved lives, okay? If you learn nothing from those 2 days of conference. Cool. But thank you. All right, let's go to the question side of things. The very first one, it's a fun one. Have you ever had lunch at the UFO? Right there.
No, but if you come to Bratislava, I'll invite you happily. All right, it's a pretty fancy restaurant up there. I heard that the food is not that good, and it's definitely more expensive than a ukulele. But I mean, I'll happily go invite you. Yeah, that's over in here. Yeah.
Cool. Going to the next one right here. Are you exporting your culture and rituals to other parts of Cisco, or can you see your influence on the big corporation?
It's an interesting question. The way I go about, or the way I see it is this: it's not that bad for a sort of big corp like Cisco to have an island of positive deviance, and from this island ships can go out, and then they return, and then things might happen. So whether we are actively exporting our culture and rituals, I mean, I wouldn't say so, but the impact is there. The fact that I'm standing in here and, I mean, it's questionable whether I will be still employed tomorrow, but at least today, I can still go present Cisco in this way.
Oh my gosh, this is so true. Like, one of the things that I've kind of also noticed as I kind of went from a smaller company into a bigger company like LinkedIn was you can build your own team that is happy, essentially. You don't have to change the whole company, but at least your island is happy, right?
Like that, yeah.
Cool. All right, going to the next one here. What lessons did you learn from the acquisition experience that can be applied to other engineering leadership roles?
So I guess when it comes to actual engineering things, engineering in the sense that are not culture and or yogurt, I think it especially in when going through an acquisition like this, it helps massively to have partners in crime on the other side of the fence. Even like at the earliest stage, whenever you can legally interact with the company that ends up acquiring you, having some kind of I dare to say champions on that side, kind of fighting for you and kind of preparing the island for you, would be massively helpful. We were to some extent lucky that we had a couple of these people, and I don't even want to guess what it would look like if that wasn't the case. So something like that.
Sweet, perfect. Thank you. Going to the next one here. 3 days. Don't them enforce people to wait for them rather than fixing? Example,
right.
Outdated documentation just right away, or
right.
Wait for them?
It's a good question. The premise is, in principle, obviously, if you see something that it makes sense to do very quickly as part of what you're working on, that's what you'll do. But there's always many more things that you can do than the time you have in a single day. So the kind of unstated policy, if you will, or the way we think about this is that it's not a I know documentation should be part of my project, so I kind of push them to kind of some sort of low-hanging fruit days. On the contrary, I see that there are other parts of documentation that also could use some improvement. That's where I kind of know that I can be ready for them. So yes, it might end up being an anti-pattern in some sense, but we were very lucky to have a team that didn't really fall down the road.
Cool. Before we go to the next loaded question right there, quick follow-up to that, right, is there are folks on the team that might be on call, right? Like things like that. How do you manage that on those 3 days where you're like, everybody else go do this, but you go sit in the corner and start drawing?
it's challenging, and I don't think we have a good answer to them. These folks know that it's not going to be always the case, but it's also Slido is big on kind of a we care culture, or yogurt, if you will. And the way we go about that is that these people know that it's them that kind of bring the others the opportunity to do something else. And yes, I don't think it would be exactly go sit in a corner. It's just kind of, yes, I understand that on my shoulders sort of weighs currently the responsibility that things like that trains run on time, and that we have to have.
Yeah, totally. No, makes sense. And the last one here, we have about 20 seconds or so, so you don't have to answer it completely. Can you tell us something about negatives that are connected to working with a large company? I can talk about a lot about that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. So in the 15 seconds, I'll tell you that you can look me up, and there is an email. I'll happily kind of send you a long list, or I'll happily talk right after this. But it's the things that you would kind of normally expect. I can say one thing though, as far as acquisitions go, Cisco ended up being a relatively good acquirer. The fact that I can go in here, stand in here, and kind of only worry whether I'll have a job tomorrow is from the fact that the team ended up sticking together. And it's something I didn't tell you in the presentation, but 93% of people that came with Slido through the acquisition are still there, and that's not something to brag about, but it kind of shows something.
Perfect. No, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to us on a fun topic like this. But thank you.
Likewise, thank you.